Hi, welcome. We are SDP Technologies, and we're going to be giving you a brief overview of our past 4 quarters.
All right, so the first thing we're going to go over is the income statement from Q5 to Q8. Q8 was our most profitable quarter with 11 million in taxable income after taxes. We had almost $9 million. Our earnings per share was the highest in the company's history at 76. We had very high expenses in Q5 and Q7 due to heavy R&D investments. In Q5, had we not invested so heavily in R&D, we most likely would have been profitable that quarter, but we saw it as a necessary risk. And given our success the following quarter, it definitely paid off in the long run. Competitor R&D investments decreased our demand. Our competitors had higher ratings in multiple segments, which outpaced our R&D investments. Next, please. So now we're going to go over the cash flow statement. We had very high demand in Q6, 130 per salesperson. So the next quarter, we invested heavily in our fixed production capacity just to oh, excuse me. Just to just to make sure that if we had demand like that again, we would be able to match it. You can see that we had regular increases in sales force and office expenses because we invested heavily in getting into as many cities as we could. Next, please. So now we're going to go over the balance sheet. Our retained earnings, like I said before, in Q5, we took a big hit because we wanted to make good R&D investments for the long run. The next quarter, as you can see, those investments paid off as we went positive. And then the following quarter, we made even more money. And then after that, we had the best in the company's history in Q8. We had steady increase in our retained earnings just due to increased demand from our first R&D investments. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
So I'll be highlighting some of the critical decisions and their financial outcomes. In Q5, it wasn't a very successful quarter for SDP Technologies. We had an R&D expense of $6,245,139. We invested in the features of video conferencing and ultra-fast computing power. Though the expense greatly reduced our retained earnings and available cash balance, the future benefit and profitability would outweigh its current cost. Another critical decision was deciding to only produce 2 brands. There was one for Traveler and the other for Innovator. And we were going to charge higher prices to have a greater profit per unit. And manufacturing would also be easier to manage with fewer brands being produced. However, this limited brand offering resulted in a smaller demand, especially since most competitors were offering at least 3 brands. So our revenues totaled $7 million, but our higher prices did help us achieve a gross margin of $4.5 million. And then in Q6, it was a great quarter, and there were 3 critical decisions that led to this. Firstly, we expanded our brand offering. We expanded into the Mercedes and workhorse segments, and this increased demand since we were able to appeal to more people. And it gave us a revenue of almost $19 million. Then our R&D features that also helped. We were able to improve all of our brands, and we had the highest brand ratings of our competitors. And we also were able to invest a lot into quality improvement, which helped us launch us forward as the most reliable company, which would be a valuable title to use in our ad claims for Q7 and Q8. In Q6, we were able to achieve a retained earnings of $258,000. And from that point onward, we would have positive retained earnings. On the next slide, I'll discuss Q7 and Q8. In Q7, like quarter 5, it required higher expenses and investments to prepare for the big push in Q8. So this was an additional almost $6.4 million in R&D. Our features that we went for were the 32-inch high-resolution desktop monitor and the fingerprint security. We also decided to open 9 additional sales offices, and this was an expense of $1.5 million. And then we also had a large fixed capacity increase where we increased our fixed capacity by 200 units so that we could be producing 350 units a day, and that cost us $5.2 million. So the expenses for that quarter were $13.8 million, and that really hurt us. But we were still able to achieve a retained earnings of $3.1 million. And then in Q8, it was a profitable quarter. Our sales force expense was $6.7 million. That really ate into our cash. Excess capacity, our manufacturing was a little skewed, so we had an excess capacity of about $2.5 million. However, we decided to go for more of a cost-focused approach and kind of beat competitors out with lower prices, which helped us increase the demand. And we were able to finish with a retained earnings of $9.8 million, which helped us give a positive return on investment to our shareholders. All right, so our best products in Q5, we had the Little Bud. This was designed for the traveler. It received a good rating from the customer union. It had revenues of $3.89 million and a total profit per unit of 2.3 thousand. In Q6, it was the redesigned Little Bud, which incorporated ultra-fast computing power and video conferencing and received a very good rating. It had a net demand of almost 4,000 units. However, manufacturing restraints caused us to only sell about 3,000, but the sales accounted for about 10.5 million in revenues. Then for Q7, the Little Bud was redesigned once again. It received a very good rating. Actually, let's see, it received a good rating because it dropped from very good. However, the demand still was high, and we were able to produce nearly 4,000 units for revenues of $13.48 million and a total profit per unit of $2,138. And finally, in Q8, we produced the AMG 3 for the Mercedes segment. This brand received an acceptable rating. However, it was the only one who was acceptable for Mercedes. Gross profit was $9.5 million, and it had a total profit per unit of $2,654.
Okay, so here we're going to talk about the best ad. So in Q5, the best ad was Innovator, and this was designed to support the Inventioner 3, which was for the Innovator segment. Our ad included things like it was a new and improved brand and that we were more reliable than the average PC. We also had 12 regional advertising inserts as well as 11 local media inserts. And then it was considered acceptable in the Innovator segment. Moving on to Q6, we had the Destin ad. This supported Little Bud, which was designed for our traveler segment. This included things like video conferencing compatible and portable Zine. We had 6 regional media inserts and 12 local. And then we were never rated for this segment. However, we did have an ad judgment of 69 in all 3 regions, which was high with our competitors. And then in Q7, the best ad was Patrick, which supported the AMG 2, which was designed for the Mercedes segment. And this included things like high resolution. It was the most powerful PC on the market at the time. We had 4 regional media inserts, and then we also had 18 local media inserts for this one. And our ad was rated good for the Mercedes segment. And then lastly, in Q8, we had the Innovator ad again, designed to support our Pioneer, which was for the Innovator segment. This included more reliable than any other PC, as well as the most powerful PC on the market. It had 15 regional media inserts, as well as 36 local media inserts. And then this ad was rated good for the Innovator segment, as well as the Mercedes segment.
I'll be talking about our strategy for Q9 and beyond. So after Q8, our company, SDP Technologies, ended with just under $10 million in retained earnings and finished in 3rd place in the simulation. The goal going forward is obviously to grow our earnings and possibly double or even expand that to triple or more. In order to do that, we have to increase our opportunity for sales and also our customer satisfaction. These things will, in order to do this, we have to update our products with new technologies and make our products more accessible to the population that we are targeting. As a company, we have to make significant investments in R&D in order to make these opportunities possible. And also by opening sales offices and things like that, we can make our products more accessible to our target markets. With R&D investment, we want to, make everything as new and developed as possible. So we want to target certain segments that we are already in, as in the Innovator, Mercedes, Workhorse, and Traveler segments. And with the R&D investment of Pro with ease of use for the operating system, we can use that for the Innovator, Mercedes, and Workhorse segments, because that will make sure that they are more satisfied with their products that they want to use. And for the Traveler segment, the global high-speed networking is a very good investment to use, because they need to be able to network to people all around the world. So having the global high speed makes that easier for them. The sales opportunities that we would like to use in order to grow our earnings and all that. We have 18, we finished with 18 out of the 20 sales offices possible to open. And in the future, we would like to expand that to all 20 out of 20. In Santiago and Quito are the last 2 that we would like to open up. And we would do that. And by doing that, we would expand everything so we have all market opportunities possible to sail to. And doing this, we would have to add more salespeople. At the end of Q8, we had a sales force of 252 people. And we would like to add more, because that would give us the opportunity to increase our demand throughout the world. And that would ultimately create more sales for us and grow our retained earnings and our earnings in general. One other thing that would create an opportunity for us is we did not go into the cost cutter segment. And if we were going into the cost cutter segment, that would obviously create another segment that we could sell to. We did have salespeople in that segment in Q8, but we did not have anything that was designed or tailored for that segment. So if we made a product that was designed for that segment, it would be it would create more of a potential to sell and earn on that segment. In manufacturing, we did have a little bit of a difficulty because, forecasting and foreseeing the future is pretty much impossible. But at the same time, we use our resources to see what is possible, and by projecting demand and seeing what we can see. But stockouts and unwanted inventory are very difficult things. In Q8, we had a total of 1,150 units in stockouts and a total of 428 units in unwanted inventory. The cost of goods sold in the unwanted inventory was a total of $678,372. And after selling that inventory, we had a gross margin of negative $215,090. So that basically means that we were losing a little bit of money on the manufacturing end of our company. And in the future, we do plan on, making sure that we, putting more research into exactly what we have to do to prevent these things, and so that we can grow our company in earnings in the future.
Okay, so lastly, we're going to go over some of the lessons that we learned. So SDP learned a lot of important lessons over these past 2 years, and all of them contributed to our success. First off, in Q1, we decided that our strategy would be the differentiation focused. We wanted to develop a couple really good computers that would set us apart from the competition. By selecting this strategy, we were able to have higher profit margins with more individualized brands for consumers. However, the only downside to this strategy is that we potentially lost some demand due to our higher prices. Another factor that really helped our company become successful was opening sales offices in as many cities as possible. Competing in every market is important because it increases our profit by taking away potential profits that other companies stood to gain if we had not been in these cities. And then from the beginning, we also saw the benefits in investing in long-term things such as R&D features, larger fixed capacity in our manufacturing factory. These allowed us to have more cash flow in future quarters when we needed to focus on things like opening more sales offices and redesigning our brands. And then a couple things that we struggled with that also helped us, however, were manufacturing issues. So in a couple quarters, we did underestimate the amount that our sales force would be able to sell. We kind of undercut our demand. So this caused a lot of ill will at one point, and one of our 4 computers never even made it into production. I believe it was during Q7. So kind of just something that we took away from that and would tell other companies who are just getting into this industry is that to never doubt yourself. We saw demand constantly rising over our quarters, but we never felt as confident about it that we would be able to beat our competitors out. So we kind of backed off on our projected demand. But paying attention to what the competition is doing is important, but we focused too much on that we ended up losing sight of how well our company was actually doing. And then kind of like Patrick had just mentioned, we did struggle with stockouts a couple of times. However, it's not something that you really can avoid at all, especially when you're producing 4 different brands in 5 different segments. So after every quarter, we would study the manufacturing, we would look at our stockouts, and we continue to develop solid manufacturing plans that ultimately helped us reduce our stockouts over each quarter. So that kind of really helped us keep money in our company instead of just wasting it to stock out. In the future years, SDP Technologies will make these lessons that we have learned and apply them so we continue to be successful in the microcomputer industry. Thank you for your time.